This video is brought to you by Devout Decals, makers of reusable Catholic art for your home altar, your bedroom, and your home classroom.
Back in the 1990s, Pope John Paul II promulgated the luminous mysteries of the Holy Rosary. They were optional parts of the Rosary. He made it clear they were optional. People have forgotten that. You do not have to say them as part of your Rosary devotion. Now, this hasn't stopped the luminous mysteries from being treated as if you were required to say it and you were a bad Catholic if you don't. This hasn't stopped that from being, in fact, one of the dividing lines between traditional Catholics and the rest of the traditionally minded Catholics in the Church. I am not here to adjudicate the luminous mysteries. Pray them if you want to. That's your business. They are optional, and no one is a bad Catholic for not praying them as part of their Rosary. But that was an innovation that touched on one of the most beloved devotional practices for Catholics, and some have said it was done in the spirit of this permanent revolution in the Church. I don't know if that's true or not, but I do know one thing. Once you change something that most people think can't be changed, then the sky is the limit on changing things. Back in 1955, Pope Pius XII changed the Holy Week liturgy, making it much easier for Catholics to attend if they want to. The Holy Week liturgies before 1955 were very rigorous. They weren't required to attend. I might be wrong on that. If I'm wrong, let me know in the comments, please. But they were very, very rigorous, much more so than now. Pius XII, with the help of the arch-heretic Archbishop Annibale Bugnini, the architect of the Novus Ordo Mass, changed the Holy Week liturgy in 1955, which was then placed in the 1962 book for the traditional Latin Mass. That Holy Week liturgy is what you'll see every Holy Week in most traditional Latin Mass parishes, though a few typically associated with the FSSP, oddly enough, and the Institute of Christ the King. They do offer the pre-1955 more rigorous form. The SSPX officially don't. Again, this is why the divide line between the SSPX and the FSSP and related groups is kind of odd. But that change in the Holy Week liturgy opened the door to the ultimate change for the Latin West, the de facto suppression of the Mass of the Saints and the promulgation of a new Mass that was designed by committee. Once that was accomplished, anything else can't be accomplished. Which brings me back to the Holy Rosary. I do not doubt John Paul II's good intentions. I don't doubt his piety or his love for the Virgin Mary. But changing the Holy Rosary to the degree that he did made it inevitable that we'd get more changes to the Rosary. And to that end, we go to X for today's story. Again, Novus Ordo watch with this news. Brace yourself. Novus Ordo Bishop introduces yet another set of Rosary mysteries. After John Paul II came up with the luminous mysteries in 2002, Bishop William Wack of Pensacola, Tallahassee has now promulgated 5 hopeful ministries. Creation, the Great Flood, Abraham's sacrifice, Passover, the Immaculate Conception, with a link, and we'll go over that in a second. Is it wrong to meditate on these things? Of course not, but these things do not constitute the Holy Rosary, and Our Lady's promises are not attached to them. By the way, don't be surprised that before he is called to judgment, Pope Francis will come up with a set of ecological mysteries. Yes, folks, a bishop has promulgated a new set of Rosary mysteries. To be clear, this is not a meditation that you say on your Rosary. There's a whole lot of those out there that aren't part of the Rosary that you say on your Rosary, and it would look like you're doing a Rosary, right down to the prayers you're saying, but the meditations are different. Instead, this is a new set of mysteries, the hopeful mysteries. And what's really kind of annoying about this is that the bishop doesn't actually really give you a lot of information on his page, on his website for this, but I'm going to show it to you. Here it is, hopefulmysteries.com. The hopeful mysteries of the Rosary for a world in desperate need of hope. The introduction of the hopeful mysteries is providentially occurring at the same time the Church is celebrating Jubilee year 2025 with a papal theme motto, Pilgrims of Hope. So here's some background on this, if you want to know. He tells us here how he came up with this idea. He says the idea of the 5 hopeful mysteries was conceived by a local parishioner in the Diocese of Pensacola, Tallahassee. He proposed the idea of the diocese where it was received with prayerful discernment, and the reflections were honed and checked for theological accuracy. After much thought and review, Bishop William Wack granted his imprimatur and declaration of nihil obstat, that there are no obstacles to the faith in the document. It was Bishop Wack's intention to clarify that the diocese is not promulgating a new set of universal mysteries, but proposing the worthiness of a devotion that has emerged in the local church of Pensacola, Tallahassee. Approved by the local bishop along with the imprimatur means that the hopeful mysteries are worthy of pious devotion anywhere. The mysteries are not given a universal promotion at this point. And that's because they're not being promulgated by Rome. They're being promulgated by frankly, a random bishop in the United States. But don't put it past Francis to think this is a good idea. This is what Novus Ordo Watch was saying. Don't be surprised you get ecological mysteries or something like that. He says, as happened with Pope St. John Paul the Great promulgated the luminous mysteries of the Rosary in the year 2002. If indeed it is God's will that interest in the hopeful mysteries grows organically over time and is adopted by the faithful, then divine providence will have once again kindly given to the flock some great consolation that they were deeply in need of. In a post-2020 affliction world, many people are struggling with hopelessness. It could be that the hopeful mysteries restores a sense of hope in the hearts of God's people and leads to a flourishing of those joyful theological virtue. I have a great idea for how to restore hope. The U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops should, as a body together, declare that every diocese will come up with a funding pool for any parish that wants to install a 24-hour adoration chapel. Adoration, Eucharistic adoration, is one of those things that you cannot explain it exactly to people. Most people can't, but it will give you profound peace and hope. And especially if you are one of the very few privileged people who have ever had access to private Eucharistic devotion, where it's just you and the sacrament. Yes, there's a priest nearby in another room who handles things related to it that they only priests can handle, but otherwise you have that private access to it. If you want to restore peace and hope, bring back and emphasize adoration, benediction. And not just during Lent. You see this often during Lent, that adoration is promoted, and great, love it. Year round. That's why perpetual adoration chapels. You know, there's been some research done on the issue of perpetual adoration in the Catholic Church. And what it shows, the research shows, is that the parishes that have perpetual adoration have greater conversions. They tend to have more families, greater mass attendance. Every metric you could possibly measure the health of a parish goes, all the data points go in the right direction when you have perpetual adoration. That would be better than this. Don't need to tinker with the Rosary at all. But you get creation, the great flood, Abraham's sacrifice, the Exodus, and the Immaculate Conception as your hopeful mysteries. But again, we're talking about the new Synodal Church. Maybe adoration is too rigid. Maybe it's too clericalist, and that's why you can't have it. You don't hear much about adoration from the bishops when they start opining about how to solve problems in the church. You want to solve problems in the church, including the belief in the real presence? Bring back adoration. Pray for the church. I'm Anthony Stine. Ave Maria.